Okay.
All right. So, Welby, I'm really stoked to be talking about Punch. I watched the movie this afternoon and it was a phenomenal movie. I love the structure of the stories and how it meshes boxing with identity and small town life, and overall it's a great film.
Oh, thank you, mate. Thank you. That's
So my
lovely.
first question is, what inspired you to come up with the story for this?
Uh, Two or three things.
Mhm.
So when I was little, I used to fly. I used to think I could fly. I used to make paper wings. And I I think I remember flying, even though I know that's illogical, but I think I remember it. And um, so that was part of it. Um, my partner Kevin, who died, he grew up in a boxing family. His father was a coach, very strict small town coach, and he trained his sons relentlessly to be boxers. Kevin was talented, but he walked away from it, and he instead went to UCLA and became a triple jumper, and came back to New Zealand and held the national title in the triple jump. And then we met, and we used to go and train out on the beach where it's shot. That's where we used to train. I'm a distance runner. So I used to train, and he used to train running in the waves calf deep, because it
Mhm.
builds the leg muscles, and running up the sand dunes. So those scenes are exact transfers from what the training was,
Oh wow.
in exactly the same place that it happened,
Oh, so it's
And
kind of so in a way, it's like a biopic, if you will. It's based
in
on
a way, that that
yeah.
that thread is a direct mapping, even to the place where it happened. And um, but then um, Kevin contracted HIV, and he died of AIDS. And his relationship with his dad was so fraught that because he his dad, I think, was wanting to live a dream through his son, and Kevin was a very talented boxer, and Kevin didn't want his dad to know that he was dying with AIDS. And in the end, his dad tracked him down, and I built this house for us, and but it's way up in the trees, and he couldn't live here anymore, because it's there's we have a bath, not a shower, all those basic things. When someone's dying of AIDS, it's pretty rough. So we went into a hospice, and his dad tracked him down, and he came to see him, and Kevin refused to see him. So his dad was sitting out in the lounge with me, and then in the end, it'll be about 3 hours. In the end, Kevin said to him, all right, he'll see him. And he went in, and he couldn't talk to him, and he couldn't touch him. And he just sat there in a little chair by the bed. It's how I put the structure of Jim with Fetu, just a bed, just a chair beside the bed, but he couldn't touch him. And he was crying. He was crying, and Kevin was so weak he couldn't close his eyes properly. So and in the end, his dad just got up and walked out after about 20 minutes. And
Oh,
I said to Kevin, it was a couple of days later, because Kevin was very supportive of my filmmaking. And I said to him, I'd love to make a film about a boxer, but it could end differently. These two men could be flawed, but we could love them both, and he said, you won't, because you won't suck up the ass of the film commission. Sorry.
but
So
it
he was
worked.
blunt. He was blunt. And I said, I fucking will, mate. I will, So in a way, that strand of the story was in honor of somebody who I love very deeply, and I miss him terribly, And it was kind of like a way of going, it doesn't matter. I think a film, it can really deal with different kinds of sexuality. That's not what's transferable. It's the human condition that's transferable. Most of us have distinctive relationships with our dads. So I thought, well, I'd like to write a situation where the son became the father of the father. But as a
Yeah.
result, he didn't have the grace of growing up without, he shouldered so much responsibility, and he didn't know, he just went reeling from trying to rescue one thing to another, and he didn't have the infrastructure, whereas Fetu was a stronger man, even though he's non-binary.
Right.
And so I kind of wanted to go, one of the things I love when I see in film is when people treat the complexity of masculinity as complex. They don't dumb it down. And I thought I'd really like to do that. I'd like to make a film where love and hope and anxiety, all those things, fear, are all treated as complex and masculine at the same time. And
Yeah,
but masculine is a very broad group.
yeah, you totally did a great job with that. And what I really liked, Tim Roth in the role of the dad. He's total alcoholic, and and he's at first he's unaccepting of his son when he tells him, but as you could kind of see, he does warm up to the fact and become supportive in a way. And Tim and Jordan was amazing in the role of Jim. I mean, I think everyone. I always say someone's gonna always have that breakout role that's gonna like boost their career. I think this was Jordan's. He did a phenomenal job here, and Conan as Vetu was amazing. I mean, and like I like the fact that Vetu and Jim's relationship like slowly builds. It's not like it doesn't hit you in the face right away. It becomes more of a slow burn, but it helps because you get to know them as the film goes on before they eventually realize their feelings for each other. And I think that's an important thing as a coming of age film.
Boy, thank you, mate. It's so great to talk to someone who watches a film deeply. That's exactly what I tried to do. I tried to make it so it was that these two guys, they were afraid of each other. They needed each other, and they were afraid of each other. And so that's exactly. And the good thing was, so Tim was he really liked when he saw the screenplay, he really liked the part. And he and Jordan were like a proud dad and his son on set. I mean, he really, really liked Jordan. He wasn't just playing, actor working constructively with another actor. They got on incredibly well. And Jordan, I don't like prima donnas, and I try never to cast them, and I try never to have them in the crew. And the good thing is Tim is not, and Jordan is not, and nor was Conan. They were people who were not invested in the part. They could possess it. And because I tend to work, I will work away from, not from the storyline, but from the screenplay. So there are certain lines in that film that actually was the actor's line. Oh, wow. And so like when Tim is trying to say Jim's trying to tell him what it's like for someone like Fetu in the town, and Jim goes, well, this is a fucking tough town. It's town. He was making that up at the moment. There was a script there, but it was too smooth.
Yeah.
And so you get these beautiful, that's why I love working with actors like this, because I see them as co-creators in a film, and when Fetu goes, that's Miss, when the guy, he says, when he comes out with the Vaseline in his hand, and I said to him, you say whatever you want to them. You say whatever, there was a line there. Well, the first thing he said, I could never have put on film. I could never have put on film. But the second line was, he said, that's Miss Faggot to you. That just came, and I always, I love working. I had great DOP, and we just, because sometimes it'll come from the first take, and so there's quite a bit of stuff in there that was created at the moment. There was a scripted line, but what came from them being possessed of the part was something else. And also there's stuff that I was able to take out, to subtract from it, because it didn't need to be said, because it had been shown. And Tim is like a master at that. He's really good.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And I mean, now hearing that's what made the film even more stronger, because when you have the actors doing their own lines, like coming up with something that's really gonna hit you, that's when the film really works. And Absolutely. And I got kudos goes to the boxing scene in the finale when Jim finally gets his fight. I mean, Jordan looked like he trained his butt off for the fight scenes, and he looked really good. It didn't look like
2 years of training he went into. 2 years of training.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it looked like you're watching Rocky in a way. It's like you busted your butt training, and the hard work paid off.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really like, all three of those actors were willing to become embodied. So like Fetu, he learned how to weave those kete. He learned how to dig for shellfish. He learned all that stuff. I had him working with a friend of mine who's a Māori language revivalist. So his accent, his Māori in it, is actually very regional, very regional. So like everybody went right down into the part. And I mean, the good thing is, because they're not prima donnas, you don't get the toxic method acting where people bring all their shit onto the screen and everybody else has to pay for it. But you get this deep, embodied, focused stuff. So like when Fetu goes to the mirror and starts putting the moko on his face, you know, when he comes into his whare, he just did that in one shot. And it was just, he came in and he almost crying. And it was just, you know, it was very easy. Most of that came from one shot. There were a few little details, but he was just so inside the thing. We closed the set because it was quite a hard thing to work with, you know, and it was so pure. The scene when Tim comes home and when Stan comes home and he's drunk, and there's the fight between, that was done in 2 shots.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Were there any problems that you faced during production, or did this run pretty smoothly?
COVID. Oh fuck.
That was it. That was the big one.
Yeah, at the moment, I'm seeing a few films, because I never watch films while I'm in the lead up to making a film, and while I'm making, I'll never watch any cinema. And I don't have TV in my house. And but we seeing films that have been made during COVID, I just have so much respect. You know, that was so hard. And in fact, in the film, because I set it during the time, that's why you'll see the kids in the classroom are all 2 meter distance from each other in the seats. So I was using the exact stuff that we were having to work with in the film, just as Jordan has asthma. So I wrote his asthma into the film.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. I'm going to be talking to him about that, because I'll be talking to him shortly after this.
Yeah.
Matter of fact.
And so that's why that is so, because he had such an amazing voice when he auditioned, but he said he didn't get a lot of parts because, you know, he'd been told that his asthma was getting in the road. But it actually, I know lots of athletes, some of our finest sprinters have asthma, and I thought, well, this guy's got a brilliant breathing. And his breathing.
You just got to train yourself, because I mean, I remember there's an Australian actor, Richard Norton. He had asthma and he took up martial arts, and he ended up fighting for films, and now he's a stunt coordinator. But I remember him saying he had asthma as well, and he trained all those years, and here he is today, one of the greatest stunt coordinators in Hollywood.
Exactly right. And I always think what sometimes we frame as disabilities are actually, they are enhancements on the human condition. And so I made changes, like, for instance, the costumes that Fetu wore, he co-created the costume designer.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. And I love that. You know, I always see when I make a film, I'm working co-creatively with other artists. But you know, it's my job to have a very clear vision, but that vision is so clear that it's got room then for people to co-create within it.
That's amazing. I'm pretty sure right now Kevin is looking down and saying, "You did it, mate. You totally did it." I'm pretty sure he's doing that at this point.
Oh, mate, that's lovely.
So finally, are you going to do another film? I know this is your first film. Are you going to do another one after this and down the road?
I'm actually working on a feature doco at the moment about the homosexual law reform, and it's told as animated collages, because during the campaign there were arson attacks and they burnt all our archives, and then they shat on the floor. And so I'm actually using our damaged archives, and with slashes of paint and burn marks, to create a new form of animation inside it, and interviewing these like 82-year-old lesbian activists with no teeth anymore, who are still as sharp as pins, you know, but they tell these heartbreaking stories and sometimes hilariously funny stories. And it was why it was so interesting was that it was the first time that the American far-right religious movement invested in a campaign in another country to stop law reform. And so it's actually internationally, it's a really interesting picture, because we were like a bag of skinned cats. We were fighting with each other. We couldn't organize, but we got the law through. against this incredibly resourced and politically astute opposition. And so it's telling that story.
That's amazing. And I would, if that comes out in the US, I definitely would like to see that. You know, being an ally, I definitely would want to see that for sure. But for those interested, Punch is coming out this Friday in theaters, on demand, and digital. I am recommending this movie to people, and especially knowing that it's partly based on a true story. I mean, and there are great performances from Tim Roth, Jordan Oosterhof, and Conan Hayes. Welby, you did a fantastic job for a first film, and I can't wait to see more of your work down the road.
Thank you so much, mate.
All right.
Thank you.
You take care, and everyone has a great day.
All right.
All right.
See you later, man. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about Punch.
No worries.
It's funny because I just interviewed Welby literally about an hour ago.
Oh, okay. Wonderful man, isn't he? He's so charming.
He had such nice things to say about you. And, you know, and I was telling them that, you know, every star is going to have that breakout role. I feel like this is going to be yours because you did such a phenomenal job in this lead role of this film. And when Welby told me what the inspiration was, it blew my mind.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. Fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's truly, you know, I'm just happy to be part of, like you say, like Welby told you, the story and sort of what it means to him, and to be part of that and try to play it as authentically as I can. That's like the gift in itself.
Exactly. So what inspired you to take on the role of Jim in this film?
I just loved it. From the moment I read it, I just connected with it. And I felt like for the first time in a long time in New Zealand, I read something that I could see someone's vision. Like I could see it on the page, and I could feel the heart and soul and personal emotion that went into it. And so, you know, when something like that comes up as an actor, you're just like, I love it. Please give me the job.
That's awesome. And you got to share the screen with one of the all-time greats, Tim Roth. I mean, that guy's legend.
Crazy.
And what was it like him playing your dad in this movie?
It was just amazing. Like every scene that we would sort of rehearse and then do, he was just like, it just felt like, people asked me, were you afraid? Like, were you like nervous? And I was like, nah, man, like Tim's like one of the best in the world. I'll just be present with him, and like, there'll be something to work with, like for sure. And every single scene was just so different and so sort of layered and truthful. And then honestly, man, just getting to hang out with him and like sit on the side of a road overlooking a beach and this horizon, you know, like those are things you'll just never forget.
Yeah, Welby was saying that you and Tim really bonded on set. You did a lot, you know, and it felt like it was actually a father-son type relationship on and off set. You know, did Tim help you in terms of like how to bring Jim out? Like, did he give you advice on, like, did you ask for any, you know, something like that?
I don't think he gave me any specific advice on playing Jim himself. It was more the like reciprocity and the sort of like all of him that he gave just made you want to just, or do your utmost to be as open and vulnerable in return, you know, like, yeah, it's kind of an intense feeling, but it's really quite interesting.
Yeah, and one of the highlights was Jim and his relationship with Wetty, played by Conan Hayes, and you know, he did a phenomenal job in this movie too. What I really liked was the relationship between you two building as the film progressed. You know, it didn't start right away. It doesn't happen right away. You know, you mean under these strange circumstances, but then as you guys get along and you guys bond more, you could see that tension getting stronger and stronger. And that was a formidable piece of the film. What was it like working with Conan, and in terms of that relationship and bringing that tension, to the slow tension to life?
It was a beautiful relationship. He's a really wonderful guy, you know, and he's very like soft but strong, like so strong at the same time. So it's really cool, you know, like there's no one I think that could have played Fetu in the same way with the same strength. And yeah, just sort of working, you know, initially meeting him, hanging out, we would sort of discuss the scene and discuss life and what we both got from the script. and then, you know, just slowly cobbling it together as you go, building that relationship. You know, not only like in the film does the relationship build, but our personal relationship builds through that, you know, and the connection that you have with people very quickly when you're doing such intense sort of content, emotional stuff, is very deep. So yeah, I really feel like we connected on a quite deep level by the end of it. Same with Tim, and same with Welby.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you busted your butt, you know, as this boxer, because you look like you could have been the next Rocky. And I remember Welby was telling me, yeah, Welby was telling me you took 2 years of training for this. What was that? What was that training like?
Oh, it wasn't 2 years. It was like 3 months, but you know, we'll say 2 years, sure.
Yeah, we'll say it.
Yeah, it was like 5 days a week, man, and it was around people that were like Cam Todd, who's my boxing coach in New Zealand. He trains Commonwealth Games boxers, people who've gone to the Olympics, people who are New Zealand champions, you know, and then there's like me just on the side, like trying to skip with some degree of rhythm, which never happened. But yeah, it was fascinating to learn from them, and it's a hell of a fitness, like it's a hell of an exercise. Like it was fucking hard each time, but I love that. I kind of thrive on that. So yeah, it was difficult in the best way is how I would describe it.
Yeah, I mean the last fight in the film, I mean that was just insane.
Yeah, but yeah, that took 3 days of like straight boxing to do that. I was so tired at the end of it.
I was gonna ask that. Like that must have worn you out. I mean, good.
Yeah, bro. Like at the end of that scene, we had like a lighter scene after that. So we did all of that 3 days, and then the last scene for that day was a scene with like 2 of us. And man, I just couldn't stop laughing. I was so exhausted. Every time they'd say action and the guy would start talking, I would laugh, and it kind of made the day go on even more. And so yeah, I couldn't stop. But it was great.
One of the best things I like was that you got to ad-lib some of your lines in the film, and I think that makes the film even stronger. Where you know you might see something in the script, but it doesn't come out right, so then you just come up with your own thing, and you know it makes it more impactful when you just come up with it on your own and not totally fake. You know,
yeah, especially when it's like, you know, it follows where the script wants to go. It's essentially just saying the same thing but with different words, but it's authentic as well. I think that's a really good balance, and you know, improv can work like that quite well sometimes.
That's awesome. I mean, like I said, you did a great job on this film. I hope that this does become your breakout, because I mean, you were just phenomenal bringing that emotion of the film. And I like the fact that Jim is actually based on a real person. That's what I was surprised at. When I heard who he's based on, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So I was like, that's amazing. And I mean, just the chemistry between you and Tim and you and Conan. I mean, that was like the driving force of the film. You know, it didn't focus on one thing. It was, you know, it's not a sports drama. It's about identity and who you are. I mean, but you're in a world where it's boxing, small town, and yet you're LGBTQ as well. I mean, it's just
yeah. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I gave my heart and soul. When you see someone do it in the writing and on set, and who Welby is as a person, you know, you just give your utmost, I suppose. And I hope it's my breakout film too. I'm keen for something else.
I was going to add, that was my next question. Is there anything next for you after Punches that you just?
I mean, there's stuff sort of bubbling in New Zealand, but there's nothing sort of organized as of yet. So I'm like viciously keen. I would say.
I hear that. But yeah, I think this film's going to be. I hope it becomes a breakout film, and people are going to remember your name after this, because I think this is going to be the film that's going to boost you up, and I'm definitely supporting that. That's for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I hope so. We'll see.
Well, Punch will be out this Friday in theaters, on demand, and digital. And guys, we got a new star in the making here. Jordan is phenomenal in this movie as Jim, and I hope that he does go far with this. And Jordan, thank you so much again for taking the time to talk about it.
No worries, man. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right. See ya.
All right. Bye.